call to order the Monday, August 19th, 2024 school committee meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence. Please be seated. The listing of matters on the agenda are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting will be live streamed for cable. A recording of this meeting will also be posted on the West Bridgewater Community Access Media website, wb-cam.org. So the first order of business is the approval of minutes, which I understand they're not quite ready yet, so we will do them at our September meeting. So Mr. Bodwell, over to you.
All right. First, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce a new administrative staff member, Mary Jufrey, new Howard School principal. She's going to be presenting a little bit later with the handbook, so we thought it was important to introduce her, maybe have her say a few words. But Mary's done a wonderful job, jumped right in, meeting with families, meeting with staff, making some adjustments when we're adding classes and so forth, looking at all available space. So done a great job, experienced administrator who we're very excited to have with us. So, Mary.
I'm speaking, do I need to be over there for the camera? Yes.
Right over there. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
No,
No,
you're good.
fine. You're fine.
I just want to make sure, everybody's right. My name is Mary. I am beginning my 23rd year in public education. I spent 17 years in Franklin, 13 in the classroom, 4 as an assistant principal. Then went to Mansfield and was an assistant principal there. The past 2 years, I was at the Blackstone Millville Regional School District as the principal of Qualters Middle School. They are right-sizing, so going from a 4-school model to a 3-school model, and that brought me here, and I honestly couldn't be happier. You should know that anytime I tell anyone I'm in West Bridgewater, they say, oh, that's a good place to be. And anytime I mention the Howard to anybody within the West Bridgewater community, they say, oh, you've got a great staff. So please know that you have a wonderful reputation, and everything I have experienced to this point upholds that reputation. Thrilled to be here, happy to see you and get started working with you.
And we are thrilled to have you. I served as the school committee representative on Mary's interview committee, and when I think she was the last one. Did she was the last one we did? Yeah. And not to compare you to a shoe, but like when you go shoe shopping and you try them all on and then you put on one that's perfect, everyone at the table just kind of knew that she was the fit for us. So we are happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you for telling me. That's really nice to know. I'm the perfect shoe.
Thank you, Mary. MSBA update, just to let you know where we're at. The process is starting to pick up a little steam. So looking backwards, July 17th, our designer proposals were submitted. That was the date set forth in the RFS. PMA, our OPM firm, reviewed all of the 5 firms. They checked references. They checked all their sub-consultants as part of their job. We held a designer selection subcommittee meeting on August 6th, where we talked about the next steps and what they would be. On August 13th was the first of 2 meetings with the MSBA, designer selection panel meeting number 1. So they have up to 13 members on this call, and we have the 3 of us, Kathy Grant, Gary Keith, and myself. PMA, they were there in my office, but they didn't have a vote. So that's when we go through the 5 different firms after we've reviewed them, checked, looked at their references, and then we shortlisted 3 firms for interviews. The next day, they sent us questions. They select 5 questions. We want to make sure they were a West Bridgewater fit for this project, and they were. They were very well written, because each firm will get 30 minutes to present on the 27th. The downside of the meeting on the 27th is our first day of school, so I'm very disappointed. They only hold these meetings twice a month, and they're set dates and they're set times. So I'm a little disappointed that I'll miss Roselle in the morning, but I will certainly be there later after we finish. So we're really excited for the firms to present to us. I think all three of them are excellent firms. All five really were excellent firms that sent in proposals. But we're very excited for the process of hiring a designer. And the goal is, and all the companies have been notified, that they will come to the school building, the full school building committee meeting on the 27th that night to introduce themselves to the committee at large. So it's, we're moving forward. Once we get done with this and hiring, then in contracting, then the next steps is writing of the educational program, which is, I think, technically due in December, but we should have it done probably the middle of September. It's a pretty comprehensive document that I'll work with the other administrators, work with the teachers, and that's going to be our focus moving forward. Any questions on
So
the
if you have it
process?
done in September and it's due in December, does that speed things up by 3 months? or-
No, unfortunately. There's still going to be timelines we're going to
Okay.
follow, but we're
Alright.
still ahead of most
Oh, that's
districts, which is good. And no other districts that were approved the same time as us are going to their first designer selection panel meeting on the 27th, so we are a bit ahead.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
You're welcome. Opening of school. So obviously coming up next week, very excited. Just want to hit a few of the highlights. One of them is adding a 5th grade 5 classroom. A lot of thought and process went into this. It's something we've been thinking of. We knew going into this year when we built the budget, kindergarten and grade 5 were scheduled to have 4. Still in kindergarten, we're in the mid-70s, I think, right now, so that does work to keep the 4 classroom teachers in kindergarten. When we looked at grade 5, we always knew August 1st was going to be an important date for us to look at when students, we kind of roll the year over at that point, so we wanted to look at what the numbers were at that point. From the end of the year to August 1st, we did see some growth. We had other move-ins that were in the process of being registered, and we were concerned about future growth. I'll be honest, we haven't seen the growth in our grades yet. I think it's still coming. There's still a lot of available homes being built and apartments. We felt it was in the best interest of the students and staff and our school community to move forward with the 5.
And I was going to mention, when we get to community correspondence, that we as a committee did receive an email about this issue, just highlighting some of the challenges that they've experienced from their perspective as parents. And I think that this was a wise move. I know that the class is kind of on the cusp, but we need to do what's best for the students.
Right, and I also received a few emails, and they're all good. I mean, we want people to advocate for what they feel strongly about. So I think it's important that we listen and we give feedback. And in this case, it seemed to work in adding the 5th teacher.
If I should know this, I apologize. Have we communicated that out broadly to all the parents?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. It went out to all the students and all the families. Yep.
Okay.
Donations and classroom supplies. So again, a little bit from parental feedback, but we're looking at our classroom supplies. Some schools are grade level, some are individual. We're looking at next year doing all grade level supplies. It just seems to make sense. We don't release our the student placement until mid-August, so if people are buying stuff, it seems to be easier to do it earlier. Working with the administrators, it seems like a very reasonable request. I'll also talk a little bit donations. I did get contacted by a community member early July, asking if they could facilitate a donations drive. And I said, sure. I mean, if people are looking to donate, why not? They were also coordinated with the food pantry. They asked for some things that we would like in the district, so I checked with the administrators, gave a list. It's obviously it's optional for people to donate. It's something that, a community member came to me and asked if they could run this donation drive. So it's, if we don't get those donations, that's okay. We certainly have, budgeted for classroom supplies within our school budget.
So do they, are they gonna bring them, to a school committee? Or are they gonna bring them, drop them off at a school, or how is that gonna?
They've dropped some off already at Spring Street. So I think more are coming. And this individual has done this in the past too,
Yeah.
and I thank them for it. And once we get them all in, then maybe at the next meeting, we'll publicly recognize the person if they would like.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I think this fits too with the classroom supplies. I know there was a lot of hubbub on social media about the supply lists and why West Bridgewater releases the placements so late. And I had a conversation with Mrs. Goulet about it, and it makes, I know it's frustrating, but it makes sense, given that there's a lot of there tends to be a lot of staffing changes, especially this year, adding the 5th grade and having to shuffle things a little bit. Those placements are not finalized until, early to mid-August, and so it makes sense not to send those out. But I do appreciate the making a uniform supply list, because when you go to Target on August 15th looking for a blue folder, you're not going to find it. And so that, for some parents, they don't have the supplies. So it's nice to have those donations from the community to help with kids who aren't able to bring the supplies in.
Absolutely. And also, through communications with parents and some of our own research, we found most districts, not all, but most districts do wait until August. And there's a lot of compelling reasons to do so. If teachers leave, if teachers, classes, students leave or students move in, it's more flexible that way.
Do we ever think or talk about, maybe even for the older grades, having things more electronic? Like I know in June, just as a parent, my kids came home and their stuff is actually in the same place that it was. But, notebooks that weren't even used, right? Like I bought like 6 or
Lot of
7
unused.
notebooks and they just came back. Like, do we, instead of using notebooks and stuff, is there do we have a goal to become more, less paper driven and more,
I think so. I think they're writing a lot
drives or
on
folders?
using Google Docs. I think sometimes there is importance to writing out so they can edit it and they can see the writing. But I think ultimately we're going to continue to try to be more digital rather than paper.
I think, Carrie and I have had this conversation. I think we're kind of caught, and it's just clicking for me now. I think we're kind of caught in between because, my now 8th grader came home with a lot of unused materials as well. And I think that it's like you want to have the notebooks in case, but they are doing a lot on their drives and Google Docs. But as a result, you end up with a lot of unused materials at the end of the year. So.
I mean, I think that's good feedback too for the administrators because then we can look at that for next year.
Myself, right?
No, important feedback, thank you. Building and grounds, we have a new director of maintenance. He'll be introduced at the next meeting, but the buildings are looking really good, the grounds. A lot of work goes into putting the schools back together, doing all the cleaning, the floors, the rugs, and so forth. So thank you to all that worked very hard. Thank you to our administrators and the staff who volunteered to come in over the summer for the hiring. Got some great new educators, very excited for them to join our team. Orientation programs, I think we discussed them a little bit later, but we do have programs. All information is sent out through the building principal. That's a much better way because if it goes out by me, then sometimes it's not as accurate or maybe more of an overview. So the principals will be sending out information. We've been communicating back and forth with Lucini. We're hopeful to get the bus routes today. We're hoping it is tomorrow. That will be a week out. They will be posting them. We'll send it out via email. We'll post it on the website to the families. And then if they have any concerns or issues, they can certainly let us know. Or I would say let the building office staff know so they can make any adjustments. We do have pay-to-ride students if they are inside the 1.5 miles. It's our goal to get students on the bus as soon as possible. We're not looking to really enforce a 2-week waiting period. There could be a bus for a particular school that's pretty crowded, so we may have to wait because obviously the students who are over the 1.5 have to take priority. But if the bus can, if there's a stop and a student can get to that bus stop, then we can put them on the bus if there's space.
Are we getting calls or any inquiries about the bus schedules yet? Or?
One
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, there's been some chatter online.
Has there? I haven't been online.
I feel like this is the time to go.
Usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
If anyone's worried, I think it's more likely that I miss it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
We had one year that I went out the day before, and that was not a good situation. That will not be repeated at all. So we'll make sure we get in touch with Lucini tomorrow. Opening day, so our opening day for our staff is next Monday, the 26th. Our students, grades 1 to 12, is on Tuesday, the 27th. And our kindergarten opens up on Wednesday, the 4th. And preschool, thank you. There was an article in the Enterprise tonight I saw that it listed West Bridgewater starting the earliest of all the surrounding communities. A lot of them start the next day on the 28th. And then all of our new educators will be invited to the school committee meeting in September. So looking forward for you to meet all of them.
How many did we hire this year for new staff?
Oh boy. I mean, when you put in teachers, long-term subs, instructional assistants, cafeteria staff, custodial staff, 18 to 20? Sound about right? I just started putting them onto my presentation. We do.
Thank you.
Okay, so a school choice update. So we did take fewer students this year than we have in the past. We did look at siblings in K to 6, and we had 3 grades that had 1 sibling apply. And we made a decision to accept those 3 siblings into the elementary level. We did not take any in kindergarten because we have the 4 teachers. We did not take any in grade 4 because grade 4 has, I think, 120. So we had another sibling there, and we just didn't, again, the goal is to not overcrowd us now and in the future, because we're still years away from a building project. Again, I'm not concerned about this year as I am 3 years from now, especially at the elementary level. At the high school level, it's more short-term. We took a decent amount at the high school level. We found this year more than other years. We had some who applied but then did not take the accepted position. So the numbers, again, are lower. It does affect the budget, so it's something we have to be aware of. But if we took in the normal amount of kindergarten, if we took the normal amount in, the other elementary grades, because if we don't, with the concern about if we don't take the siblings, we could lose 2 students or 3 students if they say, well, I can't be driving to all these different towns. So the ones we accepted are still relatively very small.
Yeah, it's a
at this
fine
point.
line.
It is, it is.
I know we had talked about it a couple of weeks ago, the number, and you just referenced it, the number of students who, or families that we hadn't heard back from. Has that changed, or is it still
Still about
pretty
the same.
significant?
Still, we've reached out to them yet again. So we'll try one more time with about a week left. Yeah. So that addressed the drop in elementary. And again, the concern is the growth in town. So we'll see next year. I mean, it's quite possible that if we have more growth in kindergarten this year, then we may add the 5th first grade teacher.
Yeah.
Therefore, we may be able to add a few in there because we're going to 5. The numbers stay relatively small. So
Does the
like-
town hall give you like projection of new houses being built or anything like that? Like, do they say like this land's been bought and they're gonna be building 17 houses on it? Do they give you like insight on that?
We've looked and we worked a lot with the MSBA on numbers like that. They asked us to find some comparable growth in town, so we took other developments, for example, I forget the name,
Farm
Farm Road?
Road.
Farm Road,
Farm Road, yep.
that whole development. And we looked and see, well, how many kids are there, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
And we also have apartments coming, but in reality, what we've been told is they don't tend to have a lot of students, but we don't know.
Yeah.
And small numbers could change us
Because
significantly.
I know some land's about to go to sale. Yeah,
Correct.
so,
So,
all right.
So quick question.
Sure.
So in terms of school choice, I'm just thinking about the budget presentation, and I'm thinking about our bar graph and seeing that it go down, and we're accepting fewer school choice over time so that we can kind of walk the fine line, as I referenced before. So we're still kind of on track in terms of what we budgeted for acceptance of school choice.
we are probably about 15 lower,
Okay.
to be honest, about, and that number could change. We could get some come in this week, but we're around 15 students less
Okay,
than the previous year.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I want to give an overview of my goals. At the next meeting, I'll go much more in-depth and provide you with much more information, but I think it's important just to show where I'm at now, focusing on 3 different goals. First one has to do with instructional leadership, which is key in running a successful district. So talk about principal walkthroughs, administrative team walkthroughs, so we're doing them as a group and looking for norms within the walkthrough. Look for such as progress in wit and wisdom, illustrative math, culturally responsive teaching, social emotional learning, literacy, while also doing regularly scheduled individual and large group admin meetings are all important. So we're constantly looking for the same types of things. Goal number 2 has to do with increasing effective communication, and really it's effective two-way communication. So making sure information is getting out to the families through newsletters, social media postings, emails, but also trying to incorporate more communication in terms of surveys, students, staff, and families. Coffee hours this year for the coffee hours. I'm going to put a virtual component, which we had back in COVID, so if people are working and not able to come in person, they can participate in the coffee hours remotely. I have monthly superintendent council meetings with representatives from the high school to gather more information. So I think we only will improve when we know areas that we want, that we can improve. So I think getting feedback is very important. I was on a good phone call today with a parent, had lots of great information. I said, thanks for sharing it, because it's good to know a perspective that I may not see. If I'm not told, if it's not shared with us, then we can't move forward in some areas. And then goal number 3 has to do with the elementary school building project, making sure all aspects of the building project are completed on time and thoroughly done, including, and most importantly, I think, the visioning sessions that we'll be having with our staff, with the community, and also completing all educational profiles and things like that. I think this is, again, like this building here, the middle senior high school, we want to be a community building, obviously used by the students and staff during the day, but also something that can be used by the community at large. It's a community project, therefore we want to make sure we have their input in what they want to see as the vision. And now again, we're ways away from a selected project, because we're not sure about grade levels, grade configurations, but we can talk more conceptually.
Do you have, I know we're just talking about an overview right now, and you're going to refine these a little bit. Do you have a general idea of how you're going to make these goals SMART goals, so measurable and time-based? I'm struggling to see how some of them can be measurable, but I look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, frequency,
Yep.
completion of certain projects and so forth, yes.
Okay, and on to business. So you referenced your goal of building the elementary school and making it accessible to the community, or making the, part of it accessible to the community. And that is a pretty good segue, because we did receive, or I received an email from Mr. Glenn Turner, who's a parent, and he's a really active member in our community. And I'm going to share portions of that email as well as some summary. Because I do think I've had some discussion with you, Mr. Bodwell, about it, and I think as a committee we need to discuss it because it's a pretty significant issue. So he writes, the topic of discussion or concern is the outrageous amount of non-approved use of our athletic facilities, most importantly the turf field, by out-of-town organizations, private club teams, personal trainers for profit, and everyone else who knows that West Bridgewater does not police this. This has been an ongoing issue for many years, and each year it gets progressively worse. I will say that the 2 I have spoken with did not go so well, both as of recently. One was a personal trainer who was using the field when West Bridgewater football camp was starting on Monday. I nicely requested that he exit the field as the camp was going to start, and also explained to him what is required to use the field. He was nice, but ignored me anyway. Once camp started, he eventually finished his coaching lesson and exited with no issue. The second was not such a nice situation, which occurred this past Sunday. Sunday seems to be the most popular day for teams to take over the fields. There was a full adult men's soccer team, not West Bridgewater, on Howard Fields, and another full adult men's soccer team on the turf. I happened to be in the area painting Wildcat logos and witnessed them just leaving trash on the field and urinating behind the storage containers. I asked for the captain and explained to him what is required to use the turf field. From there, his email goes on to talk about the hostility that he was met with. It escalated to swearing and threats of violence. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Turner for speaking up. I think many of us have seen people using the fields, and we don't know if they have permission or not. We don't say anything, we move on. So thank you for speaking up and bringing this to our attention, but also kind of attempting to deal with it when it was happening. He then goes on to say, it was honestly a little scary as I was surrounded by an entire men's soccer team. Needless to say, I got the heck out of there. I have some concerns, and again, we talked about it in terms of liability issues and then wear and tear, and we do have policies related to our property use, and so I think it would be important for us to talk about it and give the committee kind of an update on some ideas. I know it's difficult to police, because a lot of it's happening on Sunday when
Right.
the property's not staffed.
So some of the things, this is not a new concern. We did hear about this. I've talked to our athletic director, Ms. Hamill, and Mrs. Page about this, and what we can do. It is difficult because it does happen over the weekends, usually when no one is here, and we hear about it sometimes often after the fact. First of all, we encourage, if people want to use the field, there are appropriate ways to fill out the forms. They're right online. They can easily access them, and then we can go through that process. But some of the things that we've done are in the process of doing now to hopefully make it more secure. We're looking to add more signage, even putting some signage onto the field itself. It may be effective, but I tend to think if they're ignoring the existing signage, they may be ignoring that as well. Locking up the soccer nets. We've had issues with the soccer nets, but also the field hockey nets being used probably for soccer, and they're breaking the field hockey nets. So putting them in a place that can't be accessed by the public and only accessed by our youth organizations and our school teams, I think that may limit the amount of people that are wanting to be out there. Putting more information out on social media, talking about it in the public so people know that it's not an acceptable process to just go and use the field. The West Bridgewater Police Department, I did talk to Chief Nixon. He was very receptive in terms of helping us look after the property. He said all he needs to do is hear from the school when someone is not allowed to be there. So they don't want to just be going out there asking people if they can use it or not. So Ms. Hamill will be sending him information each week, especially on the weekends, because that's really when it's happening the most, and say, no one should be out there this weekend. Then he will work with them and help us police the area.
Okay, because that was going to be my question of
Yes.
how are we going to maintain this process? And it might be difficult if we know of two people or two groups that are supposed to use it, but if we know that none are supposed to use it, and they see that there's someone out there.
Where do people find the information to go to even request to use it?
So right on our website.
Our school website,
school
but not the
website.
town website. Like, there's no. I wonder if we could put a
link.
hyperlink from the
Yeah.
town too. Like that brings them to our page.
Yeah.
Just put it on the signage, when we put new signage up.
Yeah.
On the gates,
Good
I don't
idea.
know.
actually direct them where they need to go.
Because you're right. I mean, if that's someone's job, that by close of day on every Friday they email over to the police station to let them know who's on the list. That way, if I'm over there walking, I'm not going to, there's a soccer tournament happening.
Part of this building project was the community use of the track, but really the turf field is a bit different, more for liability. We don't want people accessing it during school hours, which occasionally still does happen. We've got to tell people they have to leave, but we want people to access it. But it's the wear and tear, it's the leaving of trash. We don't want to lock down the facility. And really, to do that, we'd have to increase the height of the fencing. We'd have to do a lot. So hopefully we can, by making some changes and people aren't supposed to be there and they can't access the nets, and/or we have the police helping us out. I think that should hopefully cut it down. But we appreciate people letting us know, because oftentimes we won't know until Monday morning or something like that.
I think of it as, it was a big discussion, at town meeting, speeding on Scotland Street and policing it and catching people and, you know, people just speed anyway. And I feel as though if we're consistent on this and the word will get around. So, I mean, I would like an update on this in a couple of months, maybe a little bit later in the fall, to see where we are with that. And I don't know what that update would look like, other than, you know, maybe communications from Chief Nixon. Maybe we could hear from community members if they have had any run-ins or if they've noticed a difference. I know Mrs. Milton will be driving by regularly.
I noticed yesterday. Anyways, do we have how many people or how many groups generally, Mark, ask for use outside of like, you know, the younger football players or?
I mean, we're getting to the very busy time of year where that field is used quite often by youth soccer, youth football, the school teams and so forth. So I think it's more the summer. Usually during like the vacations, we've had people request to, you know, run soccer tournaments or run soccer camps, and they've gone through the process. But we don't usually get people looking to play pickup. They're not going through the process to do that. So, and honestly, it's also generates funds that we put into a revolving account that will eventually go back into
Right.
replacing the field. I mean, it is still, I think, and when I've looked at other turf fields, we're going on almost 10 years, it's still in pretty good shape. So we want to keep it that way. And a lot of that keeping in good shape is keeping it clean, because once the Gatorade bottle, the liquids get in there and the gum and so forth, it doesn't do well for the turf.
Well, and it just sets a really negative tone, so people come back and say, I was over at the school, there's trash all over the field, what are they doing to, you know, and meanwhile, you can't be in every place at every time scenario.
Okay, I do, a little bit later on when we talk about policies, we do have the building use policies open, and I know there are a couple of points to talk about, but I'll save them for that. You know, for example, having the guidelines reference having the paperwork available. If you are using the field, you must have the paperwork available, so that if you are asked, you can produce that you are okay to be there. So, but we'll talk about it again in a couple of minutes.
Perfect.
Okay, so next, Safe Schools crisis management protocol. I know Mrs. Page is not here, but is there someone to kind of represent this, or?
I wasn't at the meeting, but I I reviewed it. It looks to be in very good order. I think the committee did a really nice job putting everything together in a very user-friendly way. I think it's helpful. We need to have procedures in place and that we can easily access, and I think this is exactly what it is. There's nothing worse than when there is an emergency, you're fumbling around looking for information. Having this on everyone's desk or in their desk, not even sometimes online, it's accessible, it's straightforward, and I think knowing we're following the incident command. So we have a great working relationship with our police and fire department and all town departments, I feel. So if there is, or when there is any type of emergency, we have great communication throughout the town.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to be part of the committee and work with some fresh voices that we haven't had before, and I think we did a really nice job. I think the team that went through it for the first, second, third, fifth pass before I got to it really did a great job going through it. And then, when we met as a larger group, it was helpful for me, and I think, being able to be a contributor to the team was great.
I think one of the points that came up is, as we talk about moving away from paper, this is one of the things that we want to have on paper, so that in the moment, if something is happening and, the class is in lockdown or has to relocate or evacuate, the protocol is there. Mm-hmm. They're not searching their phones or searching their Google Drive to find out, to find out what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So.
I agree.
Okay, next order of business is the middle senior high school student and athletic handbook. Oh, I'm sorry, let's go back for a minute. That was a voting issue. So move to accept the Safe Schools Crisis Management Protocol. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on that matter? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, now moving on to the middle senior high school student and athletic handbook.
If I may, it may make more sense to do.
Do you wanna do
'cause
the
this is
elementary first?
First, and then if you may have some questions that they can answer,
Yep.
because these have both gone through, our attorney went through each one of them, so they may have some more information.
Sounds good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
moving on to the elementary student handbook. Mrs. Goulet and Mrs. Jufrey.
Thank you. Like Mr. Bobbitt said, we did have the handbooks reviewed by our school legal team, so some of the language changes were based on their recommendations. You can see, I think you have the cheat sheet in front of you as well. So all the text we're proposing to remove has the strike through. Any new text is in the red. So the first 8 pages of the handbook is really just staffing changes. It's kind of hard to read through it all.
It's a lot.
It is, and some of them are shifting just positions or schools. I'm pretty sure it's pretty up to date, and we will update it as, like I said, there are a few lingering positions we're hoping to fill within the next few days. So as those people are hired, we can update them as well, so it's an active document for our families. It's been great having a new set of eyes looking at this, because you look at something over and over again and you don't see things. So Mary had a couple of suggestions. One of them is adding a table of contents. I didn't even, for the life of me, know how to do it, so thank God she knows how to do it. So we're able to add a table of contents, which will hopefully make it easier for families to see
I
or find
noticed
that.
it. I enjoyed it.
I know you would. And then also, she made some recommendations of shifting some things, like it had been alphabetical before, so you would find tardy under T, but it really should go with attendance, because it's all connected. So we made some of those shifts too, so you'll see in the cheat sheet, like the difference in page numbers, it's because we move things around. The next change really is language in regards to the attendance policy. We wanted to align it closer to the middle senior high school and also take into consideration the district chronic absentee plan that we created. On page 14, some language again, or just around tardy, just being consistent. We had to make a slight change to the Howard start time as well. There was a statement in there, which, Robin, I'm surprised you didn't catch this before. It actually consequenced children for being tardy at the elementary school, so we took that out. And then some language with the legal system with changing a CHINS, which was a child in need of services, which is no longer a thing in the court system, and we hope we never get there at the elementary school, but it changed to a CRA. On page 16, there is just some language changes with the nutrition celebrations. We don't celebrate birthdays in school with food. That's been a standard practice, but yet the language there just says if we're not celebrating it, it doesn't need to meet the nutritional standards. Page 16 was just some, again, much better wordsmither than I am, and grammatical expertise, so she just kind of cleaned up some of that language. On page 18, it references specialists. So it did change from all students in grades K to 5 or K to 6 to all students in grades 1 to 6. With the addition of the extra class at Howard, it no longer allows the time in the specialist schedule to do specialists at Spring Street. So for families who have had kindergartners there recently, in the most recent years, they weren't having art, music, gym every single week. We went to a rotating schedule a couple of years ago because of the schedule. And unfortunately, that 45-minute time that the specialists are teaching at Howard was the time that they would have been at spring teaching. We're in conversations with Mrs. Page to try to be some collaboration with the art department, the music department, to come down and expose kindergarten to these things. And we're working with Mrs. Maloney, our APE teacher, to see where she can put in some gym classes. But it's not going to be that standard practice like we've had in the past, unfortunately.
I look forward to some creative solution. And, using the resources we have, whether it be
Yes.
students or because I feel pretty strongly that kindergarten students need to have specials.
They
But
do.
I understand what.
Right, and if you
needs
look at the
happen.
teaching, in both of the other two elementary schools, and you factor in the travel time to find a parking place, get out of the car, get settled, lunchtime, and they have the right to the same amount of prep time as the classroom teacher does. That actually fits exactly in between their teaching time at Howard and their teaching time at Roselle. And they do follow the Howard schedule, so they do that start at 7:50, end at 2:40?
3:05.
3:05, but the teaching time ends at 2:40. Even if we could, kindergarten's out at 2:40. So we tried every which way we could for now, but maybe with more time thinking for next year, we might be able to be even more creative, but for now, we just couldn't make it work.
And we do have, we have some, last few years, Mrs. Brogdon's taken over her AP biology students, and they've done lessons with the kids and activities.
really
and it's
enjoy it.
Really well received by both groups. So I think we can set something up, and I think it's going to be beneficial to both our middle, senior high school and our elementary students and our kindergarten students.
Obviously concern for the kindergarten students,
Sure.
but also the kindergarten teachers. How does that affect? Because now
That's a good question.
they won't have that time without
Yep.
the students.
So the kindergarten teachers' contractual workday is 7:50 to 3:05. Students don't come until 8:50. So that was worked out because they knew the preschool and kindergartners had a shorter day, but contractually and for pay reasons, they work the same amount of hours as the other elementary teachers. So they have an hour every morning for that common planning time. That's when they can hold their IEP meetings, and that's what the other elementary teachers are using that 45-minute specialist time for.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so on page 18 and 19, we worked with Mrs. Page to kind of align our language for disciplinary procedures with the spin that these are elementary, and looking at the guidance from the state and from the Massachusetts law, putting in there, language in terms of mediation, alternative remedies, restorative justice. So we put that language in here.
I did have a question.
Sure.
Do we normally, or generally, in the elementary grades have detention? I noticed there was a section on detention.
I mean, I can speak for up to
Rosa.
third grade. I have not in 10
Yeah.
years. I don't say that it couldn't. I believe Mr. Lehman in the past had in the upper elementary, but where this is a pre-K to 6. We wanted to make sure it fit everyone. And then underneath suspension procedures, there's a sentence in there just to make sure that we're aligning, state guidance. Page 20, again, this is not something that lower elementary typically deals with, but it aligns with the middle senior high school, the school-wide education service plan. So if a child is on a long-term suspension, they still have the rights to an education. That kind of outlines what that would look like. Links to some laws in regards to student discipline and due process. And thank you, Robin, for adding that policy. I wasn't sure which one it was. That's why I kind of stuck it in there highlighted. So thank you for catching that. Page 21 and 22, just kind of cleaning up the language in regards to dress code. As you know, it's kind of been a hot topic across the state. So the language in there was in recommendations from our legal counsel with how to word things.
I know in the past with distribution of invitations and flyers, at least when my kids were at the early stages of Roselle, I don't know, maybe it stopped. We used to get like a printout of everyone's name, address.
Oh, yeah, the phone book, the grade
Yeah.
phone book.
Yeah, there's like a lot of profiling, right? Do you still, you don't do that?
We don't. I know kindergarten will share something out like on their Facebook page, but they're not sharing out like a telephone book
They used to
anymore.
have like the names, yeah.
And parents had to choose to put their information in there.
Okay, yes,
We
yes,
were
yes,
never
yes.
putting it in there for
Oh,
the
okay, so it
families.
was like the
That was
opt-in.
signing, I'm willing to
Okay.
share my information with other families.
Okay.
It was all by permission.
Okay, I don't remember, yeah, I remember doing it, I remember the paper, but I don't
Yep.
remember the opt-in process, okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was dress code. Some of the language on on page 23, taking out the federal Guns Free School Act, that's all tied into a lot of the policy language, so there was no need to put it in the handbook. Our language in regards to civil rights and Title IX information was added. Page 26 was just a change from the 23-24 year to 24-25 year in terms of lunch is free, lunch and snack are free for all students, once again. Page 28 is a statement in regard, I think it falls under recess, if I remember correctly, but just that it won't be a common practice as a classroom form of discipline to take away recess.
I like that.
You want to speak about report cards?
Sure. So on page 28, there's a reference to report cards. And if I'm getting the lore correctly, a couple of years ago, a change was made to the handbook saying that grades 1 through 6 or K to 6 would do report cards, sorry?
1 through
1 through 6 would do report cards on a trimester basis. However, the 6th grade continued to do their report cards on a quarterly basis as aligned with the middle senior high school. We would like to live what is in the handbook, so that's why we're putting it in front of you today, because it would be a change in practice to have the entirety of the Howard School report their grades out trimesterly. And I can explain why I feel like that is, if you're interested, I feel like it just makes sense that the entire school is on the same schedule. Parents tend to get really confused. If they have a 4th grader and a 6th grader, like, why didn't I get a report card for one or the other? There are other reasons behind it, but the biggest one is ease for parents and consistency across the school.
That makes sense.
Questions, thoughts, considerations?
It makes sense. I remember this discussion too, and how, that first report card is kind of a guessing game. I mean, you're just getting to know the kids. So
Yeah.
going to the trimester makes more sense because it's a longer period for assessment and getting to know them.
It gives the teachers more time, it gives the kids more time too. 9 weeks is really short.
Yes.
When you're adding on those extra weeks, it helps them get their feet under them. If they need to be scrambling to bring things up, it gives them a little bit more time. I feel like it's more conducive to getting the kids where you want them to be.
On page 29, this is a new section. This gives parents the information in regards to dyslexia screening that we're required to do through DESE. So that just gives them the language that will also, be sent out to them at the beginning of the school year per letter. And then the last section added is just some language in regards to FERPA.
I think it looks good. I did note, again, we're not at policies yet, but we will be opening the non-discrimination policies tonight for review at the September meeting, and there are some pretty hefty changes. And so there's actually, I think, like 3 or 4 policies that we're going to adopt. So I would propose, and I'm going to move to accept this handbook as written. And then we will revisit it in September and add that non-discrimination language, and it should be a pretty simple revision. So move to accept the 24-25 elementary student handbook as written. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion points on this?
No, it looks great.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm really sorry.
No, go
Just
ahead.
back in the report card section, the language, I don't know if it's just like a run-on sentence. I'm a little confused where it goes to and 3 times a year, individual progress reports may be sent out at any time during the quarterly period. I just feel like it's messing with my brain, the wording of it.
Quarterly period.
Yep.
Thank you. Written report cards are issued 2 times a year to students in pre-K and kindergarten, 3 times a year in grades 1 through 6 to inform parents of each pupil's progress. And 3 times a year, individual progress reports may be sent out at any time during the quarterly period.
What do we say, the
I feel like there
reporting
should be a
period?
period.
What? Okay,
I mean, it should
so
just be like
first
period at the end of the
let's
report
say-
cards and then.
Yeah.
And
And then
3
a new
times a year
sentence.
in grades 1 through 6 to inform parents, okay, and now we're just gonna put a period here.
You want to just make that one red too?
3 times a year, individual progress reports
May be sent out.
may be sent out at any time. Yeah, so are we taking out during the quarterly period?
I would say, yeah, because you're telling them 3 times a year it can be sent
Yeah.
out. I don't think you need to
Right.
do a quarterly period. That doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah.
I think I understand your intention.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the intent is that if they want shared information, they could really do it
Do
at
it at any
any
time.
point
Yeah,
during
right.
Yeah.
during the
That's-
trimesters.
3 times a year, individual progress reports may be sent out at any time as to keep parents informed of their child's general progress. Posted on the Aspen website, hard copies as requested, teachers available for conference. Okay,
Does that look better?
that's a good catch.
Good.
Thank you.
I was
You can
sitting there and I was rereading it, and I'm like, is it me?
You can look at this over and over and over and over again, just not see it.
I do have a question about report cards that is not related to the handbook. So let's wrap the motion up first, and then I'll ask the question. So, all in favor of accepting the handbook as written in front of us?
Aye.
Okay, so my question is, on Aspen, we only have a limited period of time to look at our child's report card, and then it's gone. So if you miss the window, you don't get to see it, or if you want to go back, you can't. And we do get a warning email, I will say. We get a warning email, download it if you want to keep it, but it just seems a little wonky to
I
me.
did get
wonder
a
if
couple
there's
of emails, and this was the first year I had a couple. It was maybe
Yeah.
late in June, so the window must have just closed.
Yeah.
So I downloaded the report card and mailed it. But I did reach out to our tech director, and I honestly can't remember what he said. Like, can we extend it even a month, or do we have to close it? Is there a
Right.
reason before, maybe when he rolls up the new year, he has to, but
But my
that'd be a good
question would be,
question.
why can't it be archived? Why can't it be,
Right,
a
yeah.
PDF be
Yeah.
Just be
Yeah,
able to
because
see
it
it
is
all the
PDF,
time.
it's not, you're
just
looking
Right.
at the
I don't-
active
Yeah,
grades.
be
Okay.
historical.
Why don't we ask?
yeah.
Yeah, because I think they should all show, so when
Yeah.
you're in June, you want to look at the previous, in this case,
Yep.
2, you can see them.
If you're applying somewhere, like, say you're a senior and you're applying, you want to be able to
Those should be
download your
available.
transcripts type
Right.
of thing.
And as a parent who had to do this for her son, for football, lots of times you have to
Yeah.
provide the report card.
grades.
If you're applying or filling out the paperwork last minute, like some moms did, and it's due August 1st, that wouldn't be available anymore if you didn't already download it.
Right.
So we had a couple
I think you
requests for
can,
football too,
because I thought my daughters were, but I'll check.
but not here, because I know I tried and a couple of parents, we
Yeah,
kind of
it's
walked
not-
through
I
it
was in
together
last
and
week.
it wasn't there.
Okay, ask on that.
Okay, so back to, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Goulet,
Thank you.
Mrs. Giuffre, thank you for your work on that. Back to the middle senior high school student and athletic handbook.
Okay, so you have the red line
Yep.
versions, and you have the page of revisions at the end.
Yep.
A lot of them, there's definitely ones that are name changes and the additional links. There's additional documents or information that's been added, similar to the elementary handbook, making them updated, putting in information, vaping, cell phones, and so forth. Are there any specific questions?
I think
changes.
I did have a question or two, and I think Carrie had some as well. So my same comment regarding this handbook as the elementary, we will have to
Yep.
approve a revised version to update those non-discrimination policies in September. Just a minor change that I just changed with Mr. Bodwell just before the meeting. On page 11, it had previously said tardy to class or use of hall pass beyond 15 minutes. So this is under the heading unexcused absence. And to me, it just seemed a little vague. I know the intent here was if you are tardy to class beyond 15 minutes or you use the hall pass beyond 15 minutes, you will be marked absent. But it could have been interpreted as if you're tardy at all, it's up to teacher discretion to mark the student as an unexcused absence. So I just added tardy to class beyond 15 minutes or use of hall pass beyond 15 minutes.
Makes sense.
Okay.
I think the only thing that struck me was, and we've talked about it, was just regarding it's more of a disciplinary thing, but it was in relation to breakfast and lunch and more procedures than anything for a student handbook, but it was more of, making sure they have 7 minutes for breakfast or break, or break, I should say, making sure that students, as a classroom of students, aren't withheld,
Right.
Yep.
and that they're able to have those full 7 minutes for a break, and that if there's one or two kids that need any kind of discipline, that's handled outside of.
Agreed.
But that's not for this
More-
document, but it's just more procedural.
Yes.
Yeah. I did appreciate the line in the elementary handbook about not using recess for disciplinary purposes, and I, maybe not necessarily in this version of the handbook, but in the future, I think I'd like to see something like that, not using meal times as use of discipline, because
Correct.
it's so limited for
And
them to
it's-
get down there, get their meals, and eat.
7 minutes is nothing.
Yeah.
Right. It's a social opportunity for them.
Yep, that too. Is there anything else? No, I know there was a policy name change. I did have a comment on the media release form. It references, that, what does it say here? At the beginning of each year, each student, parent, guardian will be given a media release form. Parents, guardian do not wish, yada, yada. We know the drill there. And this is only for pictures that would be going to the newspaper or on television. So my question was whether or not this also applied to YouTube. Because I did discover this last year that many of the projects that the kids are doing at the middle, senior high school are being posted on the WB Pro production
Correct.
channel. And a lot of the students that at least I spoke with, friends of my daughter, didn't know that they were on this YouTube channel. And I'm going to be quite honest, it is prime fodder for bullying because, I mean, they're being silly. And, you know, they were laughing. They're watching it laughing at other students. And so for me, just making sure that that media release form is clear, or if a student is doing a project in a class where they're creating a production that's then being posted on YouTube, that the parents are informed and that the student is aware that that's happening.
So we did find the policy, we did add in the West Bridgewater YouTube channel, just so it's clear. But I agree with it. Most of the time, it's the all the student work, but sometimes student work is part of that YouTube channel.
All right, I think that's about it. Anything else? Does anyone have anything else? Okay, move to accept the middle senior high school student and athletic handbook as written before us. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And then finally, the middle senior high school senior privilege permission slip. This one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, this hasn't changed at all. The goal is to have it approved and in the administrator's back pocket so they can use it when appropriate. Students won't get them the first day or, you know, presumably the first week, but it gives them incentive because to go on privileges, they have to be in good standing, they have to be on time for school every single day, they have to have good behaviors and no discipline. So, and sometimes lunches get crowded, and it's a privilege for our seniors, and it's only for our seniors. So they love it. Market Basket loves it. Wendy's loves it, and they tend to. They tend to do it for early, and then they tend to stay in a little bit too, because they either run out of money or they don't waste the gas. But it's good to give them that as they become seniors, and they look forward to it. So I think approving it now just allows the administration to utilize that when they feel most appropriate. Trust their judgment.
All right, move to accept the middle senior high school senior privilege permission slip for the year 24-25. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to our last order of business is donations.
So
Go ahead.
just want to thank the PTO. They traditionally have donated school supplies to our kindergarten classrooms, which is excellent. So PTO does a lot of great things in terms of giving back through programming and supplies. So we just want to thank them for their generosity and thoughtfulness.
Yeah, we absolutely appreciate everything the PTO does for us. And I know, I don't even remember when we've discussed it, but I would like to see, maybe not an itemized list, I don't want to know how many pencils were donated, but general in-kind donations so that we can accept those as property of the school. And it also is important to have that on the record because it does show the amount of funding that the PTO provides that supports our students and really kind of props up our budget. So if we could perhaps get I'm gonna use air quotes, itemized list of those donations for the next meeting, so we can vote to accept them.
Sure.
That'd be great.
I
Perfect.
think they're still sitting in the hall.
No rush.
Pass this on.
Yeah, I think I don't know if, last September we did have a list, but it was more, crayons, markers, et cetera. I think you have to high level, yeah.
Yep. Okay, moving on to policies, and we are in the home stretch here. So I'm gonna move to open the following policies for review at our September meeting. AC, non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. AC-R, non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. ACA-R, non-discrimination on the basis of sex under Title IX, including sex-based harassment. ACAB, sexual and sex-based harassment and retaliation. ACE, non-discrimination on the basis of disability. ACGA, civil rights grievance procedure. ACGB, Title IX, sexual discrimination grievance procedure. And JICFB, bullying prevention. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion on this, they're just,
We have earmarked these last year or the year prior as being reviewed annually. So these are all the policies that we have on the list that we want to review every year.
any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on. Move to adopt the following policies. These were open, just as a reminder, these were open from our last meeting in June. Move to adopt the following policies. CA, administration goals. CB, school superintendent. CBD, superintendent's contract. CBI, evaluation of the superintendent. LA, education agency relations goals. LB, relations with other schools and school districts. LBC, relations with non-public schools. And LDA, student teaching and internships. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion points?
Sure. So those had been selected at the last time that we met as a group meeting because we were working our way through the policy index. So for discussion points, the following policies contain very small revisions, like 1 or 2 words. CA, administration goals, just some small letters with legal references. CB, school superintendent, no revisions, we just added some sourcing. CBD, superintendent's contract, no revisions, we just added the sourcing. LA, education agency relation goals, no revisions, added the sourcing. LB, relations with other schools and school districts, no revisions at all. LBC, relations with non-public schools, we had just some small revisions, 1 or 2 words and some legal references. And then LDA, student teaching and internships, no revisions, just added the sourcings. The following policies had more substantial revisions, which was only 1, which was CBI, evaluation of the superintendent. We took out this document, had a ton of procedural components on how to evaluate. And what we did was we took that out and then really just stuck with what the MASC policy had in there.
All right, and just also as a reminder, the superintendent contract has all
All
of
that,
that
yep.
information in there in terms of how to evaluate and the process to follow. Any questions or further discussion?
Nope.
Cool, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move to accept the following policies for, they're new, actually. So KF, community use of school facilities. KF-R, community use of school facilities, and this is a regulation document. And actually, I'm going to stop there. So move to accept those 2 policies, KF and KF-R. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion?
Yes, so for the K policies in general, these were originally opened, and I believe in either April or May.
was a
Maybe
while
May.
ago.
It was a while ago. There was considerable amount of work that needed to be done to these. Most of the documents that we had were more forms and or had redundant language. And I just lost my screen. Here we go. So what we've done is, looked at all of the K policies, which we'll get into. But KF in particular is considerably just a net new document. You'll see when you go in there that it's just completely red, which means that it's all new. We took out there was prior language. And then KFR is just a document that is regarding the parameters and the rules for the use of facilities.
Any further discussion or questions?
Just when I open them, both of them come up with KFR.
Yes, let's look at that. Just so you can make sure you have access to the correct document before we approve it.
When they both say KFR, they are different.
Okay, so, yes, so this one here, that says KF Community Use of School Facilities, it says KFR in the file number, but it is KF, so I just
okay.
changed that. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, hold on just a minute, I got my motions here. All right, so move to, approve the following document. It's KG-E, Guidelines for Use of School Property. And you will see this in the KF folder, and it's labeled as formerly KF. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion on this. So this is a guideline document. All of the language that was in our previous KF form, so the applications for school property, athletic spaces, the fee schedule, the guidelines, all of that procedural stuff that was in our policies is now in this document. The only thing, and this is not a policy document, this is a procedural document, like the bullying policy, that we should review annually, but is property of administration. So Mr. Bodwell did quite a bit of work on this to take all of the language from our previous policies and put it in there. The only thing missing is the fee schedule for properties. There is a fee schedule in there for athletic spaces, but not for property. But we actually didn't have that fee schedule in our policies anyway, so we're going to, well, I'm looking to approve this as written, and then in September, we can approve the revised document with the fee schedule in it, just so to make sure that we have those guidelines on record moving forward, since we just rescinded all of those guideline documents. Any other discussion?
About to rescind.
About to rescind, yeah. Any questions?
No.
Is there anything you wanted to say about it?
No, I think with the online portal now, it's much easier, and it should be more user-friendly for staff. We don't have to worry about the paper going from one person to the next. It's a better approval process, and it's easier to document the events.
And it is a nice platform because you can log in and see all of your previous requests rather than, wondering where you put the paperwork. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, last motion, move to rescind the following policies. KF Form 1, application for use of school property. KF Form 2, application for use of athletic spaces. KF-E, use of athletic fee schedule. KF-R1, guidelines for use of school property. And KF-R2, guidelines for use of athletic spaces. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussion points?
Discussion, these are going to be rescinded. As we mentioned earlier, they're redundant. They're now incorporated into the other three. And we ensured that when we went through these, everything was covered elsewhere.
So it's much cleaner now and easy to find the guidelines and the policies and whatnot. Anything else? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to warrants. The following warrants were issued and paid for the fiscal year 2024. Bill warrants. On June 3rd, 2024, there was no warrant. June 13th, 2024, $220,664. On June 20th, 2024, $178,427.83. June 27th, 2024, $20,470.79. And July 4th, 2024, $236,229.25. The following payroll warrants. On June 7th, 2024, for $626,506.60. June 21st, 2024, for $528,896.55. July 5th, 2024 for $503,839.16, and July 19th, 2024 for $443,209.84. The following warrants were issued and paid for the fiscal year 2025. Bill warrants, July 25th, 2024, $194,615.32, and the following payroll warrant for fiscal year 25. July 19th, 2024 for $146,158.54. As always, all warrants are public record and once signed are available in the Selectman's office for review. All right, moving on to public comment. Members of the audience wishing to address the committee may do so at this time. Audience members shall limit comments to 3 minutes and are reminded that public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. Personnel issues or issues that would violate student or employee confidentiality cannot be addressed during public comment. Any public comment?
Thank you for bringing up the athletic field usage.
All right, and for those who don't know, Glenn Turner, can you just state your address for the record too?
I'm Glenn Turner,
Yep.
12 Stony Road. I've had a lot of experience in the use of the fields for about 15 to 18 years with the youth athletics. Filled out plenty of forms. I know the procedure. We take great pride. I was the president of the Youth Football Association for a bunch of years. So we work really hard at making sure that we follow the rules. Fill out proper forms. I love the online thing now. It's incredible. I use it for the gridiron, for the high school football kids. So it's a big deal. The youth does a lot of work in taking care of the facilities, especially when we get to the high school level of creating relationships with the administration, keeping it clean, following the rules. So when I drive by here and I see that type of stuff, it just really irks me, so that's fine. I appreciate you bringing it up.
Thank you for bringing it up to us so
Thank
that we
you.
could be aware and can address it and follow up on it and make sure that
Absolutely.
we're taking care of it. Any other public comment? No, all right. Moving on. Our next regular school committee meeting is September 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m. here at the Middle Senior High School Learning Commons. We also have a whole bunch of other events in the district. Opening of school is right around the corner. We're excited.
I know, can't wait.
So for more information, you can go on the district website, the principal newsletters, the superintendent newsletter, and the WB app. All right, move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
Thank you.